Ladies and gentlemen, please give the band a slow hand, a warm hand, slow gold, a warm hand. Here we go. Great to have you. A warm welcome to all of you in the audience, especially to our honored guests, the prize winners. And also a warm welcome to those of you following us on the live webcast. We are gathered here today for a very special event, the Gothenburg Award for Sustainable Development. In its 16th year, we will be awarding a prize to winners who have done outstanding things for a greater, more sustainable society, organizations or individuals. These are role models who have gone from talking to action. My name is Katarina Rolfsdotter Jansson. I am a moderator, a lecturer, and a journalist in the field of sustainable development. And I recently moderated a seminar for the EU Commission about the Energy Union, so I'm well aware of the challenges that we do face. I'm also the spokesperson for an NGO called Parents Roar, or Föräldravrålet, and the co-founder of an international NGO called Our Kids Climate, in order to emphasize the children's perspective in climate change. By my side, I have the amazing band Slow Gold, and the lead here is Amanda Verne, and the band will later be joined by Timo Räisänen, the singer, on stage. You're already looking forward to that, that's great. Today we have a full afternoon. The afternoon consists of two parts. First there's a seminar and two panel discussions, and then after that an awards ceremony. And in between there will be a break for discussions and also for refreshments. The world stands on a threshold for a very unique and historic shift. In the coming decades, we need to be able to shift focus completely in terms of energy. And we are indeed in a hurry. We need to be radically more energy efficient than we are today. And also we need to increase the amount of renewable energy in our systems dramatically at the same time. Because this is the only combination that can actually secure our future. And the emergent energy systems must include and make it possible for the developing countries to continue their progress without harming the future of the planet. In order to highlight what is important and also possible, the Gothenburg Award for Sustainable Development, the jury of the award, has decided to focus this year on renewable energy and solar energy. Energy transition, solar energy and energy efficiency. Very important to distinguish here. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce on stage Professor Thomas Kohlberger. Thomas Kohlberger is Professor of Industrial Energy Policy at Chalmers University of Technology here in Gothenburg. A quarter of his time is spent in Japan, where he is chairman of the Renewable Energy Foundation. He also serves as a member of the board of the directors of Vattenfall and several other boards in different advisory groups in the EU and also in Asia. Earlier on, he served as Director General of the National Swedish Energy Agency and as a member of the Task Force for Low Carbon Industrialization of the Society. For China, he is also a key person in their 5-year planning in China. Quite amazing. He's also held numerous leading positions in governmental institutions in Sweden in the field of energy efficiency, energy, etc. So now, please give Thomas Kohlberger a warm hand. So Thomas, renewable energy has been a vision for very long, but it's always been too little and too slow. Is that still the case?
Maybe too little and too slow, but no longer little and slow. 2013 was a year when renewables increased electricity generation more than fossil fuels. This year, just a few months ago, wind power passed nuclear power in global installed capacity. And I think this year, China will probably more than double the rate of installation of solar and install approximately as much solar capacity as Sweden's total electricity system. And this has been possible because renewable electricity, in particular solar and wind, have reduced the costs significantly. And that is due to industrial learning, which has been made possible by realistic visions by people like Peter Hennecke, who has shown what could be achieved, and policymakers like Beate Weber-Schorholz, who have managed to often first at municipal level design policies that did allow these technologies to spread. And those policies have been implemented then nationally, early in Germany, and that has made a significant contribution. And then we've had people like Jeremy Leggett, who have done a lot of good things in this sector, but also shown that there are entrepreneurs who are able to deliver and drive this cost-cutting development.
How about energy efficiency?
Well, there has been great progress there as well. In the building sector, we have seen how the need for energy to keep houses warm and inhabitable has decreased, also often driven by local policies to set ambitious standards for how to build houses in a good way. But maybe one of the more intriguing and fine things with this development is that technology has also contributed. And even if we do make progress improving energy efficiency, the economic potential for energy efficiency might still increase because the technology development goes faster than our ability to implement it. And the lighting technology is one good example where we went from old glowing inefficient lights to compact fluorescent lights, but then light-emitting diodes have occurred and provide lighting with very low cost and very low energy costs. So
we are actually doing it.
We're doing a lot. We may not do sufficient, but we're doing a lot, and the opportunities are now increasing as well.
This year's winners of the Gothenburg Award, how is their work more in depth related to these challenges that we have?
Well, I think I described now the roles they have played, and I think this award ceremony is important because it does give deserved honor to these individuals. But I think it's also important because it shows you in the audience and everyone who hear about this ceremony and this award a bit of inspiration that there is an opportunity for an individual to actually contribute to the global development. So I hope that this award will also make someone else in the audience and possibly someone who hear about this inspired to contribute in a way that make them deserve to be on stage in a few years' time.
Excellent. Well, we'll never know. Thank you very much, Thomas. Please stay with me here up on stage.
Yep.
Stay with me, please. I'd now like to introduce Alan Atkinson, the moderator of this afternoon's seminars. Alan is quite fantastic person also. He is also touring, like Thomas, touring the world, talk about sustainability. He is a lecturer, consultant, and CEO of the Atkinson Group, which is a network of sustainability experts in more than 15 countries. And he has written books. One is called Sustainability Transformation, and one is called Sustainability for Everyone. And Alan also serves as the advisor, one of the advisors to the United Nations, and has been elected to the Sustainability Hall of Fame, which is quite impressive. So please give Alan Atkinson a warm hand. Great to have you here, Alan.
Thank you, Katrin.
Sharing this stage for a while, on and off. That's
Good.
Good contemplation here. I'd like to know, why have you decided to get involved in this award ceremony, this award as a whole?
Well, decided. I was invited, and I was enthusiastically quick to say yes. You know, Gothenburg, and this is coming from someone who lives in Stockholm, is is a world leader on the issues of sustainable development. And I don't say that lightly. I work at the United Nations Secretariat and have made a point of inviting leaders and experts from Gothenburg into those dialogues because I think it can be and is a global role model for what you can do on sustainable development.
In your work with sustainability, do you have as strong a focus as Thomas Colbert with, in energy?
Oh, I wish I had mastered energy to anything close to that level. No, I'm a generalist. I do work on energy and climate issues, but also water and planning. I work as a general strategist, helping people to think about integrating the challenges of sustainable development, energy, water, economic opportunity for our young people, our own health and well-being. These things have to work together as the Sustainable Development Goals have recently shown us.
Indeed. And what are your thoughts about this year's winners?
I'm very enthusiastic about this year's winners, in fact, and Thomas has already explained part of the reason why. But in addition to being really global leaders on these issues, they're also really nice people, and that's...
I noticed already.
It's nice to give awards to nice people.
Isn't it? Terrific. Well, it's now time for the first panel discussion, and with us on stage, we need to have some more experts, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yes,
We're going to be actually trying to solve some real problems in real time with a fantastic panel.
Mm-hmm. We also do have a fantastic audience, and you can contribute. We do have a hashtag, Gothenburg GBG Awards, hashtag in front, so you could share what's going on here in the audience and on stage, and also do Twitter some questions later on. So, please, join us on stage now. We have Mikael Valmerud. He's Vice President of Akademiska Hus, responsible for sustainability issues and technology in the company. Please give Michael a warm hand. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Michael, what do you think is the most urgent issue for us to solve in this field?
Oh, it's a hard question. I think there are lots of issues that are important. But if you want me to choose one, I think our behavior of using fossil energy is the most important. And I think we have to change our behavior to use renewable energy instead of fossil energy. Because we just have one planet. That's the reason.
That's very true. Thank you, Michael. Please take a seat. Elisabeth Undén, she's the chairman of the board at Gothenburg's Energi. Please give Elisabeth a warm hand. So, Elisabeth, in your point of view, which is the most urgent question about in this field?
If we want to go to a fossil-free future, as we want,
we do indeed.
Quite soon, there are a lot of big investments, especially when it comes to renewable energy for the transport sector. And there are a lot of big investments involved with that. And who's going to pay for those?
So we have to look at the money issue, as always. Well, thank you. Please take a seat on the sofa. Kristina Jonäng, Chair of the Committee of Environment in Region Västra Götaland. And obviously you get the same question.
Yes, I think it's a matter of leadership.
Matter of leadership?
Yeah, you have to have an optimistic leadership on one hand, and spreading the feeling that everything is possible, spreading the leadership that everyone is invited, spreading the feeling that everyone could be a part of this mission. On the other hand, you have to have a leadership that is possible to communicate the good, even the small one, the good results. And I shall give you one. In Västra Götaland, we deal with 16 million plastic bags through a year, taking care of our garbage and so on. And now we replace them from oil-based into bio-based material. And that means 200 ton less CO2 every year.
I think that serves a warm hand, right? Thank you very much, Kristina. Please take a seat. And the floor is yours, Alan. I'll be stepping out of the scene for a bit.
Thank you, Katarina. And Welcome to our cozy little corner of the stage over here. Is everybody sitting comfortably, I hope? We're going to have a very intense conversation here now about the future of energy, so I hope that you're not sitting too comfortably. Because, in fact, as Thomas was just telling us, we certainly can celebrate a lot of progress in the area of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and yet, even if it's no longer small and slow, it's still too small, still too slow. We have, of course, a very ambitious set of goals set here in Sweden, and we are the Swedish panel in the first half of our conversation today. And we have a very ambitious goal of being completely fossil fuel free by 2050, which is a very ambitious target. And yet the Arctic is already melting. We already see increased tension global geopolitically in the world over issues of energy, and many other signals that we can talk about. So regardless of what is coming out of the Paris meeting, we have to do a very big job. In fact, the leading science journal, Nature, recently called energy the defining challenge, the defining problem of our generation. So I wanted to dive right into that. And by the way, I want to encourage all the audience members and anybody listening on the web to tweet questions and comments using the Twitter hashtag. We're going to make this as living a seminar as possible. We're going to frame some questions that we can take to our next panel. Christina Jonäng, let's start with you. So when you're working on the many issues that you're working on, but energy is a big one, do you feel you're working on the defining problem of a generation? And what does that feel like to you?
Well, it's very interesting, and as I'd said before, I think it's important to have an optimistic leadership as a politician. Everything is possible. Invite everybody to the discussions. Try to take decisions in common, and spread the feeling that we have to do this together. The public sector, the scientists, those paying the taxes, the children, and of course the local municipalities.
And that's, of course, the attitude we need to have. But as a political leader, do you feel that sense of urgency that we've been talking about? Does it affect you politically that we need to make this energy transition?
Absolutely. We have our goals in the western part of Sweden that we have to, as you told us when you arrived here, we are a very important body in Europe. We have great industries here. We have great scientists here who actually want to be in the front, not only being one of those working a little. We want to be in the front, to one of those best. And as a Västra Götaland, dealing with hospitals and healthcare center and financing this fantastic house, everywhere we have to do those small things, small results that spread the feeling that this is urgent. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Elisabeth Undin, Sweden gets a lot of credit for its energy performance, and your city has been leading, and not just in a metaphorical sense, but often the first to do various things. I learned this morning about the Green Bonds program, for example, and there are many other things one could cite about Gothenburg's leadership on energy and sustainable development generally. So it's already a world-class case study. So which of the things that you're currently focused on are you most proud of, or do you think this is the thing that doesn't get as much attention as it deserves?
Well, there is this huge project that gets a lot of international attention, but quite little attention in Gothenburg and in Västra Götaland from the public view, and that's the Gothenburg biogas gasification project, which is a huge...
Which doesn't sound very sexy.
No, it doesn't.
But it's quite important.
Yeah, we usually just say Gobigas. And it's a huge plant on Hisingen, but it's located inside the energy harbor, so it's not so visible, I would say, and you can't go there unless you're invited.
What does it do?
We gasify wood and forest residue and then we methanize it, and the result is gas that you can drive your car on.
Mm-hmm. Carbon neutral gas?
Yes, completely fossil-free.
Completely, fantastic. So, if that's the kind of thing that you are grappling with, I'm keen to hear what's next on your to-do list. What are you going to make happen in the coming years?
Well, the problem is that all of these big investments at the moment are not making profit. So then going for new investments is, to be cautious, difficult.
To be cautious. You're trying not to say a Swedish phrase that might be translated as pig difficult.
A bit difficult. We want to move forward. We want to take the next step. We want to be fossil-free, and I'm talking not only cars, buses, trucks, airplanes, completely fossil-free. But those investments are huge.
And difficult to
motivate. Yeah. The municipal part of the energy sector in Sweden have been a strong force. I know that just the 19 biggest municipal energy companies have invested 35 billion kronor the last 5 years in renewables.
Yeah.
But as the energy prices are as they are at the moment,
we're going to come back to that issue.
Yeah.
This goes into the category of knotty problems that we're going to try to grapple with during our afternoon seminar. Thank you. Mikael Valmerud, your company, Akademiska Hus, pushing very hard to move the bar on performance, on energy, efficiency, renewables. In fact, at a seminar this morning focused on buildings and efficiency with Peter Henneke as the guest speaker, I learned that your company has very ambitious goals and is meeting them not just with new buildings, but with renovation of old buildings, as much as 70% of what's happening. So it occurred to me that this is the visible effect. But I know that a lot of what we work on when we work on energy issues is actually not so visible in terms of what moves the ball forward. So I'm curious to hear from you what you're working on to advance this agenda that maybe isn't so visible for people.
Yeah, and as a state-owned company and one of the largest real estate companies in Sweden, we have an extra responsibility in energy efficiency and sustainability. And we have a goal, a huge goal, to reduce our bought energy by 50% from the year 2000 to 2025. It's a huge goal, but of course we will fix it.
The graphs all looked good this morning, by the way.
Yeah. We have reached quite far in that goal. Except for our own improvement in efficiency, we are collaborating with our tenants to change their behavior in using energy to make better, lower cost for them and more sustainable solutions. When talking to renewable energies, we are planning a lot of solar panels. The amount of the solar panels is depending on the taxes that are on suggestion for the moment. So we don't know how much it will be. We are working with ground source heat pump solutions in our campus areas. For example, Karlstad University is getting all their energy from such solutions. And our latest thoughts are if it's possible to build a commercial building off-grid with normal economic profit.
An off-grid commercial building?
Yeah. It's no building in the world today, what I know. A building consisting of solar panels, energy storage in form of batteries, fuel cells, small-scale wind power and the latest technology in building. That's a challenge, and it's very interesting.
A question, if you managed to build such a building, would the current policy environment, the rules around managing buildings, allow you to take it off-grid?
I don't know, but we will test it.
I suggest you find out. I have some friends in Canada who ran into that problem. That's wonderful that you're working on that. Thank you. We'll come back to this question of the economic incentives and whether they are or aren't speeding us up or in the right direction. Now, Thomas Koberg, so when you listen to your fellow panelists and their everyday work here in Sweden with energy, having, as we've discussed, global implications, both as a role model, and I can tell you as somebody who travels around the world, as I'm sure you have also experienced, people do look to Sweden as a role model. And what we do matters easily 10 times more than our actual emissions rate because of that role that we play. So I'm curious, what patterns jump out to you when you listen to them and from your knowledge? Is what we've just heard a kind of a microcosm of energy issues in Sweden, or are these the exceptions to the rule here?
No, I think they illustrate the opportunities that we do have. When you started, you said we had a very ambitious goal to be fossil-free by 2050. I don't think that is very ambitious compared to what we need to do, nor is it very ambitious compared to what we can do. When I was Director General, we had the task that was presented as extremely ambitious to have 50% renewable energy by 2020. We had that in 2011 or 2012, much earlier, and when I asked if the government could raise the ambitions, they say, no, we can't change anything. So stagnation for 9 years sounds like quite a poor prospect. So things are often easier than you think. Akademiska Hus has done wonderful things in the energy area, and one of the key things I think we can agree on is that you've actually measured the energy use. And once you start measuring it, you see, oh, are we wasting that much? And you found a lot of ways to decrease both electricity and heat use. It was remarkably simple and very profitable, and therefore enjoyable. What Göteborg Energy has done with the gasification plant is actually less profitable, but remarkable in the achievement of actually producing methane gas from biomass, a gas that is pure enough to run cars on or feed into the natural gas grid. They've solved the tar cracking issue. They've reached very high efficiency. But the problem for this plant is a problem of the whole global energy setting at the moment, that when renewables have been so successful, the poor companies who are sometimes in bankruptcy supplying fossil fuels like coal and oil, they have lowered their prices as much as they can to try to survive and keep some market share. And of course, it has been difficult for the gas delivered to pay the price of this plant when the oil price has fallen from over $100 per barrel to 45 or 44.
At least partly driven by the progress on efficiency and renewables.
Driven by the progress. So it's in that sense, it's a great success for the renewable energy development that we've managed to lower the cost of energy for everyone. The only who are suffering are the oil exporting countries and the large power companies. But that's not too bad. There are many more consumers, and the world enjoys this much more.
So it's a bit of a paradox, though, Thomas, because on the one hand, it's too slow and not big enough yet. On the other hand, we're going to have to grapple in our panel discussion, as the world is grappling, with this conundrum that it is in some ways the success of the energy revolution that is now causing the obstacles to its acceleration.
It is a success, and the opportunities for continued accelerated development are immense. We see continued cost declines. We see technical progress that, like the gasification plant here, showing that it is possible to produce high-quality methane gas from forest fuels. I mean, the progress is such, it will continue. What we must do with skilled politicians, coordinated policies, and industrial contribution is to ensure that we do this as fast as possible. The development cannot be stopped, but it can be delayed. And I think the policies around how to tax various fuels and how to facilitate off-grid or solar PV installations in Sweden are examples where skilled policies are extremely important to save money in the environment.
You know, you hit several themes in there which we could spend hours discussing, but one that jumps out, because I know it affects all three of our other panelists, is that phrase, coordinated policies. In fact, that was a theme at our morning seminar as well, about how the biggest challenge is getting these various actors, your company and your tenants, for example, citizens and the governmental agencies and the energy providers, to work together better. And I'm wondering if others of you could speak to this issue of that interplay between actors having to collaborate to make action happen faster.
Yeah. First, I want to say that Thomas is right. I mean, many of those goals on the European level or on the Swedish level we have already reached. For example, the amount of renewable energy. So I mean, we hadn't been that optimistic in our leadership that we should have been.
Are we getting more ambitious now?
When Thomas tells us those examples that we have reached the goals many years ago, those goals that we thought that we shouldn't reach until 2020. I mean, that's an example on that we should continue having, or should have even more optimistic leadership now to reach even more.
We should learn from history that we are better at this than we thought we would be.
Yeah. Svante Axelsson had an article in the Swedish media 2 or 3 days ago about these things, that we have been a bit too scared as a politicians. Now we can see that we reached those goals that we thought that we shouldn't reach. So we have to be more optimistic in the order to reach those goals that we had to reach in 2050 and so on. But your question about cooperation, collaboration is very important, and I see that Västra Götaland-Region is our main role to invite everyone and to, for example, finance those regional infrastructure as Lindholmen Science Park, Innovatum in Trollhättan, those meeting places where all these good ideas could come together, and you could collect financing from EU or from the region or from the municipalities or from the entrepreneurs and investigators as well. So it's very important, and I think also that is the answer of why we are so successful. We are very open-minded. It's not that usual that you have open arenas as our science parks, for example. We have to continue with that, and we had to continue financing a regional infrastructure for those meeting points.
Mikael Valmerud, I know that collaboration being the critical linchpin for your company is actually also quite challenging sometimes, getting your clients, your tenants, to get on the same electric bus as you're on this journey. Can you speak about that?
Well, that's one of our main actions, main activities, and it's very hard to get the collaboration, but because some our tenants are at the same level, but some are not.
This morning, your colleague presented different regions where you have clients, and he only talked about different colors of regions. He didn't want anybody to get insulted.
No names.
But there are differences, and those differences are driven by?
Don't know, really.
That's maybe an important thing to ask our afternoon panel. Elisabeth, please.
Yeah, on the collaboration part, that's something that I try to work on every day as a politician in Gothenburg. And it's not always easy. We struggle.
You're being so delicate about it. It's a challenge, it's hard.
It's a challenge. Different parts of the municipality and the region, of course, their main focus is not biogas. I don't know what they're thinking about. They're thinking about
They should be thinking about biogas, but
performing surgeries or education or something. But so we always end up with these everyday challenges. And Thomas is absolutely right. We have to have brave politicians that make clear policies, preferably on an EU level. And we continuously work on that.
Yeah.
The EU level is extremely important for us. But when it comes to the everyday decisions in the small board, that's where we have to keep the momentum. And that's really difficult.
we're going to talk about why that is. I have my own theory, and I'm going to try to get you to help me formulate a question about it. But first, Thomas, you had a point you needed to.
I think there are some nuances here that might be important. Collaboration is not always good. Collaboration is often something that is enthusiastically pursued by the incumbent industry, the established large companies protecting the old structures. And in a phase of renewal and in the energy sector now, creative destruction of the old, collaboration is not what's important. You need politicians who are ambitious, who are intelligent enough to learn what they are dealing with, and who are able to coordinate what they are doing at different levels. Global negotiations, EU negotiations, Sweden, the municipalities. And often the greatest resistance is on national and international level, where the large industries are most effective with their lobbying. So collaboration is not necessarily good, but you need politicians who are
Some competition.
intelligent, well-informed, and ambitious.
And some local leaders, as we're going to hear later.
And local leaders are important because they are often able to do what national leadership cannot do. And you need to dare to try things. If you don't know if they are legal, try. Experimental law is underestimated.
The one-liner is ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Much easier. And when you talked about the difficulty with your tenants, I think there are a lot of opportunities to do things that are profitable, good for the environment, and enjoyable for the customers. If you start with those, then you can do some of the more difficult things afterwards. But the conflicts are rarely there when you try to go for those things that have many benefits.
But I want to back up the tape a little bit and ask this panel to help me formulate a question. I heard all of us dancing a bit around this question of business models, basically. As the price of renewable energy plummets, efficiency gets so much better, the big companies are struggling. I learned this morning that 11% of the renewable energy financing going into Germany comes from farmers, which was a fascinating statistic to learn. So we have a totally different economic picture. And it makes it difficult for people to do the collaboration and et cetera. So help me out here so that I can bring this problem to our illustrious panel of Gothenburg Award winners. What is a way to frame the question of the kind of new business models and economic structure that we need to make this transition happen faster? How would you formulate this?
I think what we see is the opportunity to release the decision-making capacity and the investment capacity of individuals, of households, of small companies. The energy sector is now being dramatically changed, not by the old energy companies, but by new actors. And another variant of your description of the role of farmers, there was a Saturday a couple of years ago when solar electricity in Germany provided half of the total electricity used. And I talked to a friend at the German ministry, and she said, oh, well, then maybe German dentists provided more electricity than E.ON.
No, we're talking about a totally new world here when it comes to energy production. Please, how do we formulate this so we can get some answers?
Yes, of course. One reason that we have that much renewable energy in Sweden is because of the farmers and those owning the forest. The turnover of the forest industry in Sweden is 200 billion krona. And if you put up the farmers, it's not that much, but not far away. I think 160 billions or something like that. And we can see in the newspaper every day that the farmers can't survive. But still, the turnover is about 150 billions. But I mean, they have to deliver huge more in the future. So we have to have, as Thomas told us, scientists, cooperation with the farmers and those owning the land and the forest, of course. And it's in a hurry to start this cooperation and to find the financing.
So how we release these small actors, that's part of it. But Mikael, for example, you're not dealing with farmers. No. You're dealing with universities, large institutions. How would you frame this?
I think we're used to, since long time ago, used to buy fossil energy, nuclear and hydroelectric power from traditional companies, energy companies. They're often using old business models and often with no or low competition. That's a problem, I think. And now there's a lot of new companies, as Thomas said. We have large energy consumers that are willing to try new energy sources and new business models. So that would be good for the future.
So there's an opportunity, but we don't know exactly what those models look like yet. Do we, Elisabeth?
No, we don't.
Yeah. So what should they be? That's the question.
I would say the whole energy sector is struggling at the moment to find new business models. And I say it's a combination with these private homeowners that will deliver a lot of the electricity in the future. Some farmers will deliver biogas. But there still have to be some centralized district heating. People still want to shower, I presume.
I certainly do. I think we've got
so
our
we will
economic...
have to. I mean, what I'm coming to is that there have to be different models.
Yeah.
We can't go from. We're coming from there is one model and that's how it works, and we're going to something else. It's a diversity.
A plurality, a diversity of models, and how do we manage that? I think we've got our question on the economic issues to bring to our panelists. So I thought I'd ask us to turn our attention briefly now to the technical side and what you all are wrestling with in your own thinking and acting on the technical side. And Elisabeth, back to you. You've mentioned the elephant in the room a couple of times, transport. What's our challenge there?
I think that a lot of people at the moment think that electricity, that's the solution, period.
I drive an electric car, so that's...
That's fantastic. I drive an e-bike.
Oh, she just one-upped me a big time. Yeah.
But we have a lot of transport that can't go electric. And we have to consider that. And those still have to go from fossil to renewable.
So not just thinking we have the easy answer by imagining that all of us will plug in our cars the way we plug in our iPhones in the future. That's going to be more complicated than that.
I guess you still want milk.
I think Christina agrees with you. She's nodding.
Yes, we have to be friends with every technologies. And I agree on you that we have a picture now that electricity is the answer to everything. But we have to continue to finance those important biogas projects, for example. We have, together with the city of Gothenburg and Beskrivning, we have financed 44 stations for biogas tanking, and we have the highest amount of biogas cars in Sweden. And we also have those interesting projects, electricity, as you probably have heard of, and so on. We have to continue with that interesting project.
So diversifying how we think about these things, multi-fueling. Mikael, again, you're not dealing with cars very much. You're dealing with large buildings. What are the technical challenges that you see that we need some solutions and some guidance from our prize winners about?
I think digitalization will help us be more efficient.
The decentralization of the sourcing.
Digitalization.
Oh, yes.
That's one clue to be more efficient.
And how does it affect you how does it come onto your desk, that issue?
One more time.
What form does it take in terms of, it's a technical challenge? Is it a challenge to get tenants to move in that direction with you? Is it a challenge to find the technical
It's both a technical challenge and behavior. Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Thomas, I'm going to give you the last word on this part of our conversation.
I don't see many challenges. I see more opportunities. With electrification, the progress has been immense in the last few years because batteries have become cheaper. You're using more batteries in cars and vehicles, and batteries will become even more cheap. We have the electric bus in Gothenburg, which we think is excellent. In Australia, they just demonstrated a coach bus that could run more than 1,000 kilometers on one charge. Boeing is starting to series produce a trainer aircraft, a two-seater trainer aircraft in 2016, using batteries. I know a lot of people who thought that was impossible not many years ago,
That's right.
including myself, I must admit. So things are developing very quickly, and the fact that prices are coming down for batteries will also affect the electricity sector. And you mentioned that you could have an off-grid commercial building. Power companies are scared to death by the fact that it's now possible to have solar panels and batteries and disconnect from the grid. But it will open fantastic opportunities for the electricity consumers. And the world, when you don't need any of these large polluting fossil fuel thermal power plants, will be a lot better place.
Don't tell that to the people working for Vattenfall right today.
I mean, I try to tell it to the people in Vattenfall. That's my job.
Yes, of course. But President Obama was reading from the light of a lamp invented by a Filipino inventor running only on salt water.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see an explosion of these kinds of inventions, and maybe I'll buy a Vattenfall saltwater lamp someday.
Yeah, I've had one of those. It's a result of the very efficient LED lights that is possible. But this also opened up political opportunities, and I think that is worth mentioning as well. These things are popular. People like solar panels. And one of the most entertaining news in the United States almost 2 years ago was when electric power companies tried to restrict solar rooftops. And suddenly you had a very rare political alliance between the Republican, reactionary, conservative Tea Party movement, who hate President Obama, dislike anything decided in Washington, but they also dislike large monopoly companies like power companies. So they joined forces with the left-wing liberal environmentalists who liked solar panels on the rooftops because they helped avoid climate change, which the Tea Party movement
Doesn't care about.
believe in at all.
Quite blunt about it, yes.
They formed the Green Tea Coalition with their own website just to fight politicians trying to restrict solar rooftops. And this is true almost everywhere.
Yeah.
These things are very popular because people can get engaged and get control over their energy supply. So I think it won't be too difficult politically either.
So if I was to try to boil down our conversation now into a couple of questions that I'd like to bring forward to the Gothenburg Award winners, one would be, what are the new business models, given these changing conditions and the pluralities that we need to deal with? And rather than how do we accelerate technology, how do we, in fact, take advantage of the explosion of technological innovation that's already happening? Would that be a fair summary?
A good start.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank this panel for a very energizing conversation to get us started. You know, somebody had to say that once, right? But speaking of human energy, we have a short input now from one of the more renewable sources of energy on this planet, and that is our youth, Gothenburg youth. And their questions and actions are around trying to create a better energy future for our city. So if we could please show the film.
skulle jag vilja säga ödmjukhet, acceptans.
Ja, det är ju hela tiden att vara öppen då för förändringar. Framtida ideal brukar jag väl prata om också, som vi kanske inte alltid vet exakt idag. Vi måste vara öppen för framtida generationens behov.
Jag tror på mod och jag tror en stor portion av lyhördhet och ödmjukhet. Och sen att kunna skapa den här delaktigheten. Det tror jag är viktiga egenskaper hos ledarna.
Jag tycker det är väldigt viktigt att ledarna är engagerade i de här svåra miljöfrågorna. Och så tycker jag att det är viktigt med att man involverar flera, speciellt unga som verkligen vill vara med och påverka och förändra. Och sen att vara modig och våga gå på nya stigar och våga gå sin egna väg, även fast det kanske är lite riskabelt.
Jag skulle ha ett Göteborg där man ser till Göteborg som en stad i helhet snarare än diverse olika stadsdelar där man jobbar tillsammans på ett hållbart sätt.
Man tänker på att man inte ska slösa på resurserna, utan man tänker på inte så mycket slit och släng, utan att man tar vara verkligen på det man har och de resurser som finns. Ja.
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 Thank you very much for sharing your valuable insights. It's now time for you to leave us for a bit, and you can enter this exit this way, please. Give them a warm hand. When it comes to energy from the sun, do you know that we receive as much energy in 1 hour that we need to run the planet in 1 year? It's quite mind-boggling, isn't it? Thanks to the sun, we gain access to energy that is free, more or less free. It's also globally accessible and a fantastic source of completely clean energy. And this also makes it possible for a completely decentralized system to happen. And we know by now that only dramatic rise in renewable energy in combination with energy efficiency is going to help us get out of the jam that we put ourselves in. So it's now time to expand our horizons to the more global perspective, and I'm looking at the award winners here. I'd like to introduce to you the award winners. And first, before they enter the stage, I'd like to read out their backgrounds, and they're quite extensive, so bear with me. It's very interesting to hear what they've achieved so far. They couldn't choose one, the jury this year, so they choose 3. I think that's excellent. And this year's Gothenburg Award is awarded to Jeremy Leggett in the area of solar energy, and to Peter Hennecke and Beate Weber-Schoaholz in the field of energy efficiency. And in terms of Dr. Jeremy Leggett, he's an English businessman and opinion former who has done a tremendous amount of good things for our future and in terms of energy, and especially in solar energy. Dr. Dr. Jeremy Leggett has founded the company Solar Century, and also and Solar Century donates parts of its profits to an NGO called Solar Aid, which is an organization founded in 2006. And Solar Aid provides solar electricity, solar lamps to Africa. And Jeremy Leggett has made remarkable and enduring contributions in the transition that we really need to global low-carbon energy and the economy connected to that. Dr. Professor Peter Hennecke has been called the German Bishop of Energy Efficiency, and he's been a pioneer in energy transition in Germany called the Energiewende. And already in 1985, Professor Dr. Peter Hennecke wrote a book called Die Energiewende ist möglich, already in 1985. And his research and participation in governmental expert committees and various groups has greatly influenced the company of Germans' work with energy efficiency and renewable energy. He has clarified the decisions to the decision makers, the various elements and levels that we require in order to reach the goals for a more sustainable future. He has held posts as head of the leading Wuppertal Institute for Climate, the Climate, Environment and Energy, and he is currently a member of the Club of Rome. He has also worked for the UN. Beate Weber-Schurholz is the former mayor of Heidelberg. And Heidelberg has been awarded twice the title European Sustainable City. She's now the member of the European Parliament, chair of the Environmental Committee, and she was elected mayor of Heidelberg already in 1990, and she's been a mayor for 2 terms. And during this time, Heidelberg has really excelled in this work of sustainable development. And this work was very much connected with getting people, companies, and organizations to work together, which, as the panel here has demonstrated, is key to coming forward in this process. And just 2 weeks ago, Heidelberg was awarded Global Green City in the United Nations in New York City. And this prize was awarded for 20 years of engagement for the protection of the environment and the climate. That's not bad, huh? So please, we start with Dr. Jeremy Leggett. Please come up on stage. Give him a warm hand. Wonderful to have you here. We are so happy to have all you 3 prize winners with us today. Climate change, big topic. What is your hope for solving the energy challenges that we really need to solve in order to address climate change and to stay below the dangerous levels of greenhouse emissions?
I think if I have to pick, am I allowed 2 things?
Yes, please.
The first thing is, and here I agree very much with Thomas, I think now that we're in the transition, it has started in multiple countries, in multiple arenas, I think it can go so much faster than most of us can even imagine. I include myself in this. I mean, we're living in a world where Apple, for example, intends to be mass-producing solar-charged electric vehicles just 5 years from now, and their little power plants that will be hooked up together, and who knows where that kind of thing can lead. But the other thing that I believe is, you know, you can't just use technology to fix this problem, and this is the second area where I'm really hopeful. Communities and religious leaders are now really getting fully involved in this, and I think it's not just the Catholic Church, and I'm not a Catholic, but you know, the importance of the Pope's encyclical is vast, because he's essentially saying, you know, we can deal with this problem, we have to deal with this problem, and by the way, we're not going to fix it just by counting emissions and regulating. We've got to re-engineer the operating manual of how we work, how we design modern capitalism. And I think that's a source for great hope going forward.
Well, hope we need indeed. Right. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please give Professor Dr. Peter Hennecke a warm hand.
Great.
It's an honor to have you here too with us.
Thank you very much for
And I'm
inviting
actually
me.
pose the same question to you in terms of these challenges. What is your hope for solving the energy situation and to stay below the dangerous levels of climate emissions?
It's not a hope, it's a confidence.
Oh.
You are right, I'm a concerned optimist. There is a lot of concern, no doubt. But we listen to these optimistic stories, not only on the renewable side, but especially on the efficiency side. And let me preach a little bit in the direction of efficiency, putting it together with renewables. And we have a great new momentum on the political arena. We have the SDG encourage an agenda, which is very closely connected to energy and resource efficiency. And I'm quite convinced we will have a good outcome in Paris at COP21.
Lovely music.
Nevertheless, that there were disastrous events in the last days. Having been in many parts of the world, I feel that the momentum is going on, not only in Sweden. You are great, and I listen to all these wonderful...
We don't mind having company.
You are really great, and I'm a huge fan of Swedish development. But you, Denmark, and Germany, we should unite to push the Energiewende in Europe. Then it might fly, maybe a little bit earlier.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please take a seat, Professor Doctor. Beate Weber-Schua-Holtz, former mayor of Heidelberg. Please give her a warm hand. An honor to have you with us too.
Thank you.
So what is your hope in this situation?
Well,
energy connected to climate change.
Well, it was so interesting to have all these people here
Wasn't
and
it?
to listen to them. I think we should have more time to discuss with each other and with you.
There's a break. There's always a break. We can talk more.
That's necessary. Okay, well, I think the most important thing is to convince people that this is not a threat, but a chance for developing, a chance to modernize and to optimize not only industry, but also society. It's first of all, it's a change in your minds. It's much more than technique and money. It's you have to change your minds, and then you have to cross all sorts of borders. My colleagues already spoke about the United Nations, the European, the provinces, the local level, the national level. Sorry, I forgot about that one. But in environmental questions, in environmental matters, national borders don't really count much. And then you have to, another cross-sectoral issue is crossing the different interests. In every society, in every department, you have different, you spoke about that, Elizabeth, the different sectors, education. You have to bring construction, you have to bring education, transport, energy, all the different sectors together. And they are used to their thinking and
silos.
have to watch sideways. And, well, that's the most important, these are the most important matters that we have to deal with.
It's so wonderful that all three of you are so hopeful. Let's give them a warm hand again. And before I leave the floor to Alan and the prize winners, I'd like to encourage you to Twitter your questions. I will be taking them down here in the corner and breathing them out to the panel after the talk.
Great. Thank you, Katarina. And goodness sakes, welcome, Jeremy and Peter and Beate. It's so wonderful to have you here in this little corner of the stage. I hope you feel warm enough on this cold November day.
Everything is okay.
Good. You know, this sofa is it's a very special sofa. It's a Swedish invention. It absorbs the body heat from the previous panel, stores it, and then re-emits it at the appropriate time. So we're going to export that soon. Now, all three of you have heard the challenge of the youth and the example that they're both looking for and setting, and we're going to come back to youth at the end of our time together. But you also heard that there are a couple of rather difficult problems that we have to solve in terms of accelerating beyond what we've currently achieved with the Energiewende. And I'm hoping that by the end of our seminar, within 25 minutes, we will have essentially solved these problems, and people can go forth and continue changing the world even faster than you have done. So, Peter Hennecke, I'm going to, no, Jeremy, I'll turn to you first if I could, because I know that from our previous conversations, and you mentioned already something connected to this, that you were recently in Silicon Valley. All of you travel incredibly. And you said you saw quite a number of things there that were surprising and a bit exciting about that, and unexpected. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Silicon Valley is one of the great inventive hubs that is going to be central to this big struggle to survive climate change. And you've got all the things there that you need to make the solution work. But if I could just pick one example, I was in a hub, an incubator for young entrepreneurs, green entrepreneurs in Oakland. And these are people of the same age as the wonderful folk who made this film. And, you know, they're steeped in all the things that you need, all the tools that you need to engage in the opportunities of this energy transition. So they come from business schools, they've got strong business backgrounds, but they understand all the paraphernalia of the information age. And one of the things that is going to be so important for us is to overlay on the energy transition the kinds of things that are happening, have been happening in the information revolution.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking about apps on our iPhones? And
yeah, I mean, this is my point about it's difficult to even imagine. I'm a man of a certain age, and the global energy industry is run basically by men of a certain age who are completely unfamiliar with a lot of these things. And this is one of the reasons for great hope. And you look at some of the companies that have emerged in California, and you know, if you're of a mind to be impressed by statistics of values of companies, you know, these have come from nowhere in a few years and are now worth billions of dollars. And they've done things like leverage people's lofts and spare bedrooms. I'm talking about, you know, Airbnb.
Yeah.
And where's the energy equivalent of that? Yeah, we haven't seen it, but it is coming. And it's probably coming to an IKEA store near to you soon.
So the technical innovation is taking off from places like that. But Peter Hennecke, I know that you've just recently arrived from Japan, and you were on a kind of a global or Asian tour of India, China, Japan, where you advise major energy initiatives. Is there an energy transition happening there too? Were there any surprising developments that you saw that you can report to us?
Yes, you are right. It was a small trip. I started in India, then went to China, and then to Japan. The main message coming out of these talks is that the Energiewende is not a problem of Sweden, it's not a problem of Germany, but it's happening in all the three huge emerging countries or high-tech countries like Japan. Let me give you some examples. The first one, I was struck by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in Delhi.
In Delhi?
In Delhi. It's the most advanced and good lesson learned institution which fosters not only energy efficiency in the industrial sector, but it conducts the biggest LED program in the world. So it's quite amazing. And the next one is the Indians know energy efficiency is important, renewables are important, but resource efficiency is even more challenging. So they installed a resource panel like UNEP did for the world. And this is a more integrated view, how to decouple lifestyle questions, happiness, living standards from the use of all resources, not only energy, but critical metals and everything else. And then going to China, I was struck by what they call the ecological modernization. I was the international co-chair together with Professor Xulan from Tsinghua, and we thought about a heart on the core of the transformation of China. That means how to establish a new government's capacity to transform this gigantic, huge country in a more green direction. What I learned is that the announcement that there could be a peak of carbon dioxide in 2030 is too cautious. It might be much earlier, and that's a good lesson for all people who are looking on the still growing carbon dioxide emissions. And the third one, that might be the interesting one, because, you know, Japan, or somebody in Japan likes nuclear very much. They want to restart nuclear as much as possible. But we managed to get a close contact to METI, the Minister of Economics, to establish a cooperation council on Japan and Germany for 2 years, looking into the transformation of the energy sector to solve their problems, which are high rising prices, carbon dioxide goes up, the import dependency goes up. So they have a lot of problems, and we have problems as well. We don't have the capacities for the low-hanging fruits of maybe storage, maybe of e-mobility and so on, so we can learn a lot from Japan as well. So that's great.
My goodness.
Learn from each other.
Yeah, so we're really getting a picture of a global transformation that's not just happening in Germany and, and Sweden. And I think our audience is probably beginning to get a sense of our panel here, why they won this award, the incredible energy and command of the issues that they have, and how they trot the globe on this work. Beate, I know that you work in China as well. You're very active in many different venues, but the one that struck me when I was reading about your recent work was Guatemala. That you were involved in a Latin American advisory group on climate and energy. Is there an energy transition happening in Guatemala, and what does that look like?
Well, I wouldn't put it immediately on the national level. The interesting thing was the local level was active. And that's exactly what has been discussed before on your panel. You have so many leaders on local ground that have the courage, the will, the strength to do something, and the creativity. And what really struck me most was in Guatemala, it was a meeting of Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. They founded a network supported by others, but nevertheless, and there were representatives from Chile and Argentinian cities networks, and they all spoke this. They didn't only speak Spanish together, the same language, but they spoke the same language, political language on climate change and what we can do about it. And they were all extremely enthusiastic, and they were all willing to act in spite of lack of enthusiasm of their governments sometimes, and not just waiting for orders coming from above, but doing things because they saw in their streets, they saw in their energy needs, they saw in the bills they had to pay for energy, and they saw when they traveled or when they met colleagues all over the world in organizations like ECLE or others. They realize we can do something. We don't have to wait, like every individual can do something. So this is something you don't have to wait for. You don't have to, believe and obey. You can be active, and that was the most fascinating experience everywhere. In China as well, there were so many colleagues. The only difference between the Chinese mayors and ours is, for instance, we are about to construct, it's already under construction, a sort of new suburb, totally and without additional energy, passive house standards, and it's for 7,000 inhabitants and 8,000 jobs.
Outside of Heidelberg.
In Heidelberg, within Heidelberg. But when this Chinese mayor I once met in New Zealand stood up and said, presented himself and said, well, I'm sorry, I have to apologize. I only come from a smaller Chinese city. We only have 2.5 million inhabitants. So it made some difference. And then later in China, I served at a sort of a comparable body. these mass planned suburbs for 500,000, and so this, for European standards, even Gothenburg isn't that big. So this makes things a bit difficult and a bit different.
And a bit different. You know, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we are in Sweden, and I just have to know, how do you see Sweden? We like to think we're leading on this, but are we still, or have we fallen behind these extraordinary developments? Are we even on the right track with our own energy developments here? Anybody care to speak to that?
Yeah. I would not dare to say that you have 9 years of stagnation. That's the wording of Thomas. That would be not too much polite. But you know, the role model of Swedish energy advancing with high standards for buildings, having the privilege to have a lot of hydro for electricity, is a little bit connected with a problem which should be solved, having twice as much electricity consumption per capita than Germany seems to be a little bit too high, to be quite polite. And if you put it to the standard of Germany, you can get rid of nuclear immediately. So there are losers and winners when you talk about that question. But just to encourage you to keep to this leading position which Sweden had for the last decades. And I think this risk minimizing strategy has to be solved.
We might have to raise the bar by lowering the goal towards which we're heading. Thank you for that, Peter. Jeremy, I'm curious, when you listened to the Swedish colleagues and also your German colleagues, do you experience in the UK the same struggles that you've been hearing about? What's the picture like there for you compared to us?
Well, let me make a point about Sweden first, because I think one of the reasons why I've gone from being a pessimist about these issues a few years ago to a qualified optimist, really hopeful that we can win the carbon war, as I put it. I had too many toys.
That's the name of his book, by the way, available for free download. Just Google Jeremy Leggett winning the carbon war.
And all my female friends tell me I had too many toy soldiers when I was a boy, and they're probably right. So I apologize for the title if it offends anyone. But you know, one of the reasons, there are so many reasons right across the stage of this great epic drama why we can be optimistic. And one is the corporate world. So if you know, when I started out a quarter of a century ago, virtually every company was there either to obfuscate or to plain stall and try and torpedo the process. That's what it was like as an environmentalist 25 years ago. Now, of the top 100 companies in the world, 52 of them are actively promoting what we're trying to do to different degrees. And you pick the front runners, and you have to, you know, you pretty soon come down to Unilever and IKEA. And IKEA, as I'm sure everyone here knows, has the goal of 100% renewable powering its operations globally by, wait for it, 2020, 5 years from now. And you know, they're taking it seriously. They're really going for it. My company has the privilege of, you know, working for them, with them, behind their brand. And they're deadly serious. And if every corporation in the world did that, had that kind of goal, right. And of course energy efficiency is vitally important because it reduces the mountain for them, we would be solving this problem very quickly.
Yeah.
So, you know, Sweden has a front-running corporate company. And you asked me about the UK. Do I have to answer?
You don't have to answer.
We're on
actually. And in fact, I'll be diplomatic. Time is actually running down, so we'll let you skip that naughty problem of its own. But instead, I'll ask if I can get this panel to try to solve this problem that we heard earlier. None of you seems to find it as troubling in your initial comments as our Swedish panel did, of the need for a new business model around energy, to make the economics of it add up and the transactions work in a world where renewables are getting so cheap, efficiency is getting so good, and the big utilities are wondering what to do with themselves. Is there a solution that we should be aiming for, or should we just let things keep developing the way they are? And what's the answer?
Well, if we start thinking about industry or business not just being the big enterprises, but also the small ones, for instance, the small and medium ones, so between 5 and 400, 500 employees. So I think the important thing is to translate what you know into very practical action on site, because the smaller ones, for instance, they don't have an environmental department. They don't have environmental management. They don't know anything about the environment if they are not, as private persons, interested in these issues. For instance, if you ask a baker, what we did in Heidelberg, because we thought a bit about psychology, if you tell them, now you have to deal with the environment, they just say, sorry, this movement in Germany means you're a bit stupid. I don't have anything to do with the environment. I'm a baker, and I have 2 bakers in my room, and we work together, and that's it. But then we started talking to him, and we brought a group. We had special programs for these different crafts, and then later for small and medium enterprises. And we went together into their baking, into the room where they worked. And there were 2 scientists, which always give a sort of neutrality, not like the politicians or the administration. And administration always comes and sort of threatens with fines or fees or something, or they always have the feeling they have to pay something. And they wouldn't like us immediately when we go into their working rooms. And we went together with this academia. Then we had other businesses we asked to join us, and these people and administration together, and we looked around where are possibilities to optimize. And suddenly this bakery ended up with a just very easy behavioral change, just switching on the oven later than it used to, because they were afraid that the necessary heat wouldn't be reached in time. Then they set a simple little alarm of $20 or 20 euro. They set it so it would be heated in time to reach the temperature when they had the dough ready. You know what? That saved the energy of a 4-person household per year and reduced their costs. They suddenly realized, oh gosh, the environment, maybe it has something to do with me. And that happened to others. So, and we went on with different strategies, different people we addressed. And
so, Beate, you changed Heidelberg 1 bakery at a time. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't just start with a little roll, but, we ended up with the university clinics to participate. But overall, it's more than 150 enterprises that took part in it. So it was really a broad movement in the city, and people started thinking about modernizing their jobs, and that was, I think, the most important step.
Peter, I heard a similar story from you earlier about the importance of the smaller actors, and we heard that from our earlier panel as well, that we tend to think that in order to solve the business model problem, we have to save the big corporations or help them change. But we're hearing a story coming out of this panel of a much more diverse and pluralistic approach. Does that align with your thinking about this?
Let me split the question in 2 parts. One is, how can we scale up all these success stories? One very important model or frame condition, in my opinion, is the feed-in law, which we have in Germany.
The feed-in tariff.
Feed-in tariff. Yeah. It puts the opportunity to the normal citizens, not to the farmers as well, to create cooperatives. We now have 1,000 cooperatives.
1,000 energy cooperatives.
And it's an exponential growth. It's still going on. And the main driver behind this business model is the feed-in law, the tariff, which gives clear incentives. Everybody is aware that he gets maybe 8 cents per kilowatt hour for putting photovoltaics on the roof, or maybe about 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour for a wind power plant. So this incentive schemes and the clear roadmap of the whole energy transformation, which has to be decided by the government. That's important, that everybody who wants to invest his money knows, yes, these are the targets and we are heading for the targets. Another one I think is very important, especially for Germany. We have 800 utilities. 800. Very much on a local level, but we have those 4 guys, the gang of 4, and they are in troubles.
The gang of 4 means the 4 very large utility companies.
One part of the gang of 4 is unfortunately
one of which may be Swedish owned.
But the bigger ones are E.ON and RWE. Yeah. I preached to them since many decades that we should change our business opportunities to help the customers to save energy. That means to enlarge the chain to the customer, to the energy services, and to earn money by selling services instead of building new power plants. Now they realize that there is a business opportunity in it, but of course there must be a recovery mechanism to get the costs back. But the energy efficiency, the megawatts are so cheap, it's between 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour, maybe 5 cents per kilowatt hour, cheaper than any supply of electricity. So we should help them earn their profits.
The best source of energy is not to have
Absolutely.
to make it.
They have the technological know-how, they have the capital, and we should help them, the big guys, but the 800 utilities as well, to be engaged in the transformation of the whole energy system.
Jeremy, when you listen to this, what we've heard is small actors, government policies, feed-in tariffs. You're running a business in a country that's not well known for being a friendly policy environment on these issues, and yet you're still doing well. Is the answer government policy to unleash this accelerated transformation?
Well, of course, it's helped enormously, but every form of energy, everyone here knows this, every form of energy needs subsidy. The difference with renewables is that we're not going to need subsidies for very much longer. And already solar is the cheapest option in many places around the world, and in a few years' time it's going to be the cheapest option in most places around the world. And you hook that up with batteries and off you go. I mean, it's a challenge for us to get over to people how this is going to change the face of the energy industry. We just picked one report off the shelf by one of the investment banks, UBS. They've done a big study on how you combine solar with storage and electric vehicles. And they're saying that across the OECD, you're going to be able to have a solar roof, an electric vehicle, a bank of batteries that will do everything you need in your home. And the capital outlay on that you'll get back in less than 7 years. And the crucial thing is that the annual rate of return, no subsidies in sight, will be north of 7%. And none of the banks or any of the bonus cult temples are going to be able to come close to helping people that way. So big as the community movement is right now, I mean, it's going to devolve down to the household. The utilities will be the households. And, you know, I have friends in these big energy companies, and I do feel a bit sorry for them. This is a huge challenge. It's not obvious that these people are going to be able to find their way through the transition, even if they have the good sense to realize that there is no alternative.
This is this is a wonderful discussion, and I would love to continue it, but it's going to probably have to continue in its substance anyway over the breaks and other times. I'd like to just give each of you a chance to make a kind of a very short closing statement, particularly speaking to the youth who are so engaged on these issues. What advice do you have for them? And then we'll take some questions from Twitter before moving to our coffee break. So, Beate, maybe we'll start with you. If you were going to answer the youth in our video today about how they can achieve what you've achieved, what would you tell them? What do you tell them?
Well, I would just support what they did first, because they looked very good, and I think we can be very confident that they will manage the future much better than we obviously did. And our generation and the last one spoiled the earth. So we must always be aware of that, so we are not too reliable as giving advice to the young ones. First of all.
Okay.
I think the best way to prepare them is to really keep their eyes open, to do what they realize is right and necessary, and not just wait for others to tell them, and not wait for others to do. Very often people prefer to look at examples of others. Why don't you set the example? So you can always be the first one to do something. Sometimes it can go wrong.
Sure.
But if it's all these small steps, then if a tiny little step doesn't go straight, but a little bit to the left or to the right, it doesn't really matter. It's not too bad. It's only the very big ones. Look at the big mergers. We allowed our economy in this world to have big mergers and to immediately lose billions of dollars and to sack thousands of people. These were really big steps. I think we can make much, much smaller mistakes without spoiling the earth immediately.
Thank you very much, Beat. Peter Henneke.
It would take 1 hour to bring all the good wishes and maybe some educational advices to all these young people, and we do it when we teach students, and I had the privilege to do it in Lund with highly educated PhD students. That was great, and I will go back to Lund 10 days from now. To be a little bit humble, what they told us, and brave as well. We need more visibility for the invisible negawatt.
More visibility for the negawatt.
The negawatt, how to avoid energy. You can't see it, how you avoid it. You can only measure it. Jeremy and the community has this sexy blue things on the walls, on the roofs, everywhere, and everybody would agree, oh, nice to have it. But the negawatts, where are they? These are circulation pumps in the keller, absolutely unsexy. So I would like the young people to think about design, marketing strategies, social marketing campaigns, how to make the invisible visible, how to make it to feel that we need it. And maybe no, I leave it by that's
good.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Jeremy, what do you have to say to our youth?
Well, I'm thinking of all the young people that work in the company at Solar Century, and it's difficult to answer the question without sounding like a self-important idiot, but you know, I think this idea of giving profits, companies giving profits to help people in other countries, is so potentially powerful. And that's what I would invite young people to do. If you're setting up companies of your own, or you go and work in other people's companies, why on earth can't you give 5% of the profits to something like we did at Solar Century, setting up a charity for solar lighting or any other thing, you know, that helps people in those countries and deals with environmental problems. It ought to be doable. We started doing it when we were a tiny company. This year, you know, we've given £250,000, and you could make a whole new form of capital in the world for social good, dedicated to social good, if you did this. So that would be the one thought. And then, you know, what you can do with it. I mean, Solar Aid, the charity that we created, within 3 years became the lead retailer of solar lighting across the whole of a continent, based out of just 2 countries. And that was mostly done by young people, not men of a certain age sitting in an armchair in London, but young people in the field, in Nairobi and Lusaka and all the rest of it. I mean, there's so much that can be done. And it's a very, very exciting time.
It is.
To be young.
And your comments have been very, very exciting to me. So I want to thank you for those. Katarina, well, we have just a few minutes before the break. Have there come any interesting questions from Twitter?
I'm afraid too many.
Too many. Let's take one or two.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for sharing your questions on Twitter. You, of course, can go in and read them and follow them yourselves on Twitter. One big one for all three of you. What are your thoughts and expectations for Paris and COP21?
Peter.
Yep. The caveat, I said the same thing about Copenhagen, and like many people, I was catastrophically wrong. This time I do think it's different. So many ducks have been lined up, so many powerful forces are pointing in the right direction. I think there will be a very strong signal sent. It obviously won't be enough to get us 2 degrees, but it will get us on that trajectory of hope, the winning of the carbon war, as I describe it in this free download book. And I'm crossing my fingers when I say it, but I expect to see grown men and women, diplomats representing their countries, in floods of tears of happiness on the final morning of the climate summit in Paris.
I think we should, yes.
That's all. Just visualize that moment. That's wonderful.
That was such an optimistic moment. Maybe we should take the next question and just let it sit there.
Why not? Good idea. Christer Ove poses this question. The global economy and fossils are interdependent. Should we link renewable energy to a new economy based on transparency?
Well, transparency not only according to energy, but to everything. I think transparency is...
Maybe this is a good time to just reform politics.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's necessary for every decision. If you believe in the reason of mankind, if people being reasonable, the knowledge is there, the technical possibilities are there. So the only way of pushing decisions forward, pushing changes in behavior forward is by discussing it openly, putting all the information to the open, discuss this information properly, and then base your decision on knowledge. That's the only way of really dealing sensibly with what you know and what you have and where your responsibility is.
No, thank you. Peter seems eager to answer this.
Yes, please.
As well.
If possible, let me add one idea to that really great challenge of COP21. The reason why I'm more optimistic than concerned is that humankind is now ready to identify the co-benefits of climate mitigation. If you are in China, and if you look into an area which is so full with smog, you feel it when you come down from the airport, where the soil is polluted or the water is polluted, and there are 1.3 billion people who feel it every day. Then they know to reduce fossil fuels, to step forward to renewables and to efficiency will solve all these pollutant problems as well. At the same time, they reduce the import dependency, they reduce a lot of other risks. So this is the great hope, that we can identify how many premature deaths we can avoid by putting our energy in renewables, in efficiency, and that's, in my opinion, besides the cost degradation of renewables, the most important driver of COP21. So let's step in that direction.
I think that great hope is a great note on which to go to coffee, don't you?
Absolutely. We have stretched our mind so much now that we need to stretch our bodies. So please, refreshments. The bell will sound when it's time for you to re-enter the facilities. 45-minute break. Please enjoy.
Okay.
Wonderful, happy, happy music. We need injections of that kind of energy too, right? I hope you had delightful conversations and delicious refreshments during the breaks. It's now my great pleasure to introduce to you the Minister of Energy in Sweden, Ibrahim Baylan. Please give him a warm hand. Welcome to Gothenburg.
Thank you very much.
You will be the speaker of honor today at these awards. Why is the Gothenburg Award important at all?
Well, I think, it goes without saying, with the challenges that we have ahead of us, I think it's very important to not just have a political debate, the big words, the big agreements. I think it's very important also to highlight the practical solutions that we already have, the technologies that are developed by initiated and engaged people, and to show that it's not only hot air, there is concrete solutions to the challenges that we have ahead of us.
Speaking of challenges, we have COP21 just 11 days from now, and you will obviously be attending together with Åsa Romson. What is your hopes? Tell us.
Well, we are in a lot of ways in worrying times. I mean, we have seen what has happened in Paris, what's happening in Sweden today. But I think COP21 is a glimpse of hope. A hope that even though we have huge challenges ahead of us, coming together, it is possible to solve these challenges. And in that, we also create new possibilities, not only for the planet, but also for countries, for small countries, for big countries, and also give people the hope that it will be possible if also in the future to live a good life, a comfortable life, a life with a great degree of liberty, and doing it in a sustainable way.
What can Sweden benefit, or what is the position for Sweden in this transition?
Well, I would say in many ways that we are in a situation where we have everything to gain and nothing to lose by being a pioneer. I mean, for a country like Sweden with a high degree of technological development, very good condition for renewable production of or generation of electricity and energy, the use of energy. A lot of the solutions that we have, I think, could prove to be a part of what will give people hope. And of course, for us, I must confess, there is also great opportunities for exports of both services and goods, and for new jobs and economic development. I think we are just on the verge of a new industrialization in this country, and I'm actually very excited about it.
Terrific. Well, the floor is yours. Thank you.
You very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and winners of the Gothenburg Award for Sustainable Development. Let me begin by saying that I'm very happy to be here and to be able to address you during this prize ceremony, although I'm not seeing that many people here. That's a bit unusual, but here you are. This is in many ways a very important event, because as we discussed, we have big challenges ahead of us. Global challenges with a direct impact on the future of the planet. Or I would say, not so much for the planet, because the planet will be here even with or without human beings. Great challenges with a direct impact on the future of the human beings and other species on the planet, I would say. The biggest one, I would say, is the challenge of the global warming and the climate. I think one of the most important things for us to solve is the challenge of how we today supply and use energy. Because we know that energy today is behind 2/3 of the greenhouse emissions. It's also important to say that we should not and will not be blinded by the challenges. Because when I look ahead, I see also a lot of opportunities for change. Many of the solutions that the world needs are already here, or already and underway. Let me highlight a few examples from the world of energy. In energy, I would say that we can rightfully speak of an ongoing energy revolution. There is a shift in the market from large centralized production toward prosumers, flexible consumers, and smart grids. This is creating innovations, new solutions, and new business models. Let me take a few examples. The cost for solar PV and onshore wind has decreased rapidly. This has made electricity from renewable sources grow, and global net additions last year reached an all-time high, roughly 45% of all net additions in the world. The fast development in batteries and storage capacity and electric vehicles may soon lead to a revolution in the transport sector, which will benefit consumers as well as significantly decrease the environmental impact from transportation, a key issue in the global climate challenge. In many ways, as we were just discussing, Sweden is well positioned in this development. We have very favorable conditions for renewables, for wind power. This is a windy country all over the world, all over the year. Too windy sometimes. For hydro, in the new system, in the new renewable, 100% renewable energy system that we see ahead of us, hydro will prove very, very important, I would say. For biomass, biomass is already today, or bioenergy, I would say, is already today our greatest source of energy. That is not well known in this country, but it is. It is as big as hydro and nuclear together, although, to confess, it's not the same thing. It's for heating purposes and the other is for electricity, but still, we have around 140 terawatt hours of energy from biomass already. That creates a situation where we can be a long-term net exporter of renewable energy and energy services. Combine that with the fact that we are at the forefront on IT and services already today. Swinglish. And I think as equally important, we have also innovators and customers that are curious and interested in adopting new solutions and advanced technologies. Of course, not everything is sunny, especially not at the moment. We, of course, also have challenges in this country. As most of you already know, we have 10 nuclear reactors today that are providing us with 45% of our electricity. 4 of them are announced for decommissioning in the coming 4 years. And that, together with the owner's predictions that the rest will also be decommissioned in the coming decades, creates new challenges for us, of course. One of the most important is the one referred to as capacity adequacy. It means roughly that the most challenging things for us in a renewable system will be providing sufficient amount and quality of electricity at any given moment during the year, even during the coldest days in the winter. In Swedish, it's called effektfrågan. But one thing is true for Sweden as well as for the rest of the world. In order to meet these challenges, we need action. We need research and innovation. We need new solutions and cleaner, more efficient technologies. We need entrepreneurs. We need information. We need knowledge and a broad understanding of possible solutions. This makes the initiatives like the Gothenburg Award for Sustainable Development, very important. It serves to highlight not only the challenges, but the way courageous and motivated people have made big contributions to meeting these challenges. It shows that it is possible to do things that matter if you take the challenges seriously. Furthermore, the awards highlight a very important aspect, and that is that governments and companies can and do invest in research and development. Large efforts are already made to find and develop new solutions. But, and this is also equally important, this cannot succeed. It cannot make an impact if the new products and services are not introduced to the market and meet a consumer demand. And this means that we also need entrepreneurs. We need people that can inform the public and create an understanding and a demand for new products. In short, we need people like Dr. Jeremy Leggett. His books, his solar company, and his clean energy charity. We also need people like Professor Dr. Peter Hennecke that can give decision makers information and the arguments to be proactive, to make proactive decisions. And, ladies and gentlemen, we need local decision makers like Beate Weber Scheuerholz, who can act on this information and use the new technology solution to move a whole community forward. Solar energy and energy efficiency are two very important building blocks in the construction of a sustainable global energy system. As Dr. Hennecke showed early in his research, and the motto that Mrs. Weber Scheuerholz as well as Dr. Leggett has followed, the energy transition requires a combination of renewable energy and energy efficiency to be successful. I can only agree. That is also the Swedish experience. As for energy efficiency, the analysis of the International Energy Agency clearly shows that more energy efficiency in different sectors will contribute to over a third of the emission reductions necessary to reach the long-term 2 degrees limited targets. The same goes for the opportunity to achieve the EU objective of reducing the greenhouse gases by 80 to 95% in 2050. The analyses also show that extensive measures to improve energy efficiency need to be taken in the short and medium term before 2030 for long-term climate objectives to be achieved. As for renewable energy, solar energy is not our only option. It is, however, a renewable energy technology with dramatic decreases in cost and a large rate of investments. At the end of 2014, over 1% of the world electricity generation was supplied by solar PV. Add to that some of the most renewed, respected investment banks predicts that in 3 years' time, solar will become the most competitive way of generating electricity in 80% of the world's countries. Unlucky for us, Sweden is not included in that analysis. Why? You could go out and you'll see why today. But of course, when the storage capacity has developed to such a degree that you can move energy from the summer to the winter, that will also be true for Sweden. But we are not there yet, and I think in a few decades we will be, but we are not there yet. Fortunately for us, we have a huge battery in hydro instead at the moment. So, today, my friends, we celebrate important achievement in facing the future. And I would like to express my heartfelt congratulations to the winners. Give them a warm hand. To conclude, we are in worrying times at the moment. We have a lot of challenges, short-term, mid-term, and long-term challenges. But as a species, we have shown again and again that we can meet the challenges and turn these challenges into new opportunities. I'm very proud to be minister in a country that has shown that already in the energy sector. I'm very proud to be part of a government that has already set its aim and to target a totally 100% renewable energy system the coming decades. To show, I know that will not solve all the problems in the world, but to show that it is possible to live a comfortable life with a high degree of liberty for its citizens, and doing that in a sustainable way, doing that in a better way than the fossil-dependent society ever could. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd just like to give my best wishes. Let's just go Paris, push in Paris, and we've got your back. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good to know. Good to know. Thank you.
Last year's winner, Paul Pullman, CEO of Unilever, has sent us a video greeting. But before we look at it, there is a way out. Oh, he's very athletic, our minister. Well, you say break a leg when you enter a stage, not when you normally exit, so, but you're okay. Paul Pullman, CEO of Unilever. I'll read out now why he was awarded, and I quote, "Through his leadership, exhibiting great courage and commitment, which inspires in a global corporate world where environmental and social values often are overshadowed by more short-term financial interests." This was the statement that was for last year's winner, Paul Pullman. And here is his video greeting. Please enjoy.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you once more for the great honor of receiving last year's Gothenburg Award. As I mentioned to you last year, I'm delighted that the Gothenburg Award will be donated to the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust in Africa, which allows it to expand its programs into Malawi. The Kilimanjaro Blind Trust was created in September 2005 when we took a group of 8 blind climbers to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. The Kilimanjaro Blind Trust's goal is to improve the lives of the blind and visually impaired children in Africa through improving literacy and education. With well over 20 million visually impaired youth globally and only 10% going to school, you can imagine that the need is urgent. KBT, or Kilimanjaro Blind Trust, not only focuses on the right to education, but more importantly, also ensures that all children in school have access to Braille machines, Braille paper, and increasingly qualified educational support. Since its inception, it has placed or repaired well over 12,500 Braille machines via a network of 170 technicians trained by the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust in Braille repair and preventive maintenance. Advocacy has also ensured more involvement of the governments concerned and obviously enhancement of the right to education for all. We are now actively working on a lower cost Braille machine to reach thousands more children, and equally importantly to ensure also that these children will be integrated in normal life by creating job opportunities. As I mentioned, the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust is in East Africa and currently operates in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda and Ghana. And with the support of this award, it will also now be expanded to Malawi. I want to thank you once more for your help. With your help, we actually can provide the tools needed for people like Marion or Obichi Chibola that you've seen in the video. If you're interested, go to the website www.kilimanjaro-blindtrust.org. Thanks and have a wonderful event. Thank you very much.
I also thank the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust for providing the 2 machines, and we are also hoping that they're going to provide more so that we can enhance our life in school and after school.
Wonderful. How very inspiring. Let's hope for more inspiring stories from this year's award winners next year that we can show. Talk about inspiration. Music coming up, more music. The band Slow Gold will be joined by the singer Timo Räisänen, very well known from television. And I know Timo is just putting out a new record, just like you are. You're putting out a record tomorrow called Glömska, Slow Gold. So please give Timo Räisänen a warm hand. Hello, Timo.
Hello.
You will be playing a song, it's actually one of my absolute favorites. And it's so top-notch, great for this day, because it's about sun, wind, and water. And it's a song composed by Ted Gärdestad.
Yeah.
And Timo, in terms about Gärdestad, you're putting out a record celebrating his birthday. He would have been 60 years old very soon. He has unfortunately passed away. Why Ted Gärdestad?
Well, good question. A friend of mine is a huge fan of his, and this friend of mine is also a musical genius, and he proposed to make a concert with me and a classical orchestra called Gothenburg Wind Orchestra. And I thought it was a lousy idea, because to me, Ted Gärdestad was like just summer and birds, and it didn't really have any depth, thought I. But I was proven wrong, and I was really proven wrong, because I went into some kind of psychotic, I don't know, I spent like 3 weeks listening only to Ted Gärdestad and like really...
Hence the album.
Yeah. Long story short, hence the album.
But Timo, Sun, Wind and Water, Sol, Vind och Vatten, it's a classic. And it was very important when we spoke very strongly about energy the last time during the anti-nuclear demonstrations at the turn of the late 70s and early 80s. And do you feel any sort of special connection with what's going on now in terms of these lyrics?
Well, I mean, this song is so multifaceted. It's
also about love.
It's about love, and it's about just having a good time. And you could argue that it's about God. But I think it definitely it has a connection to what's going on and sustainability, and he sings, or I will sing soon, that there's time for reconciliation before the day is over, and that I think is important, that we still have time to do something about the situation, but we have to get a move on.
Get a move on. Excellent. I'm going to move your microphone stand.
Note to self.
Note to self. Is this good for you?
Yeah, perfect.
Here we go. Please give Tim a raise and a warm hand. Take that.
Spela syrsor till vindarnas sus. Ännu rullar kulorna på skolgårdens grus. Och än strålar solen på brunbrända ben. Ännu ruvar fåglarna fast timmen är sen. Och det finns tid till försoning innan dagen är förbi. För jag tror friheten jag lever i. Och är det inte verklighet så drömmer jag. Sol, vind och vatten är det bästa som jag vet. Men det är på dig jag tänker i hemlighet. Sol, vind och vatten, höga berg och djupa hav. Det är mina drömmar vävda av. Jag vill veta vägen till hedarnas hus. Jag behöver omges av en ledstjärnas ljus. Och det skymmer vid Sion och natten blir sval. Men än doftar blommorna i skuggornas dal. Och det finns tid till försoning innan natten slagit ut. Men jag tror att livet får ett lyckligt slut. Och är det inte verklighet så drömmer jag. Sun, wind and water are the best things I know. But it is of you I think when I'm all alone. The sun, wind and water, high above and deep below. That is what my dreams are made of. Are made of. Yeah, that is what my dreams are made of.
That was wonderful. I'm sure that I was not the only one who all of a sudden just became 14 and started singing. I hope my microphone was off, by the way. Wonderful. Thank you so much, and good luck with the record.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Timo. It's now time for the prize ceremony. And I'd like to ask all three winners, please, to join me on stage. And I think they need a note group on hand. Lotta Goethe is the chairperson of the jury for this prize. And she is part owner and chairperson of the board of Ecoplan. And Lotta is mainly active in projects promoting sustainable transportation and renewable energy. Lotta is also a member of the board of the Swedish Agricultural University. So please give Lotta Götte a warm hand. It's a bit of a ballet up here, so we take our positions right.
Yes.
So Lotta, please.
Please. Thank you. I will read the award motivations for all 3 award winners, starting with Jeremy Leggett. Please join me up here. And this is the award. Jeremy Leggett has, through his long and devoted involvement in clean energy, stimulated both debate and action at a global level towards the development of a sustainable energy system. Leggett founded Solar Century, as we've heard today, one of the world's earliest solar panel companies. Thanks to Leggett's entrepreneurship and perseverance, Solar Century is today the UK's largest independent solar electric company. Leggett also founded Solar Aid, a clean energy charity which is the largest seller of solar-powered lamps in Africa. Through his tireless work to promote renewable energy, Leggett has made a remarkable and enduring contribution to the transition to a global low-carbon economy. Thank you.
Hey!
Well, thank you very much for this great honor, and I really do feel humbled by it, because the sad truth is that after all this time, now 15 years since I created Solar Century, I still don't know how to wire together a solar array. And so this is my point, that I do feel that I accept this award on behalf of the hundreds of people, mostly younger than me, mostly much younger than me, who do work and have worked for both Solar Century and Solar Aid, and so that you could get a feel for these wonderful folk and what they do. I think if you could permit me one anecdote from each company, just to paint the picture of what we've done together, and mostly what they've done, because like most people on boards, I sit in an armchair and don't actually do that much in the way of execution. But it's they who do, the engineers and others out in the field across Europe and Latin America and Africa for Solar Century, and of course the teams in the 5 African countries that we operate in for Solar Aid. So I think the first, actually 2 anecdotes for Solar Century, a cultural one to give you a feel for what this company has been like over the years. A while ago, a good few years ago, in the first phase of the company, we had a situation, as you do in business all the time, situations. And this one was weird, because most of the marketing department, in fact, all the marketing department was female, and all the engineers, with one exception, were male, and they kind of fell out with each other in a really quite distressing way over the large budgets that were being spent on things by the marketing department that the engineers didn't approve of. And this got quite acute. And so we solved this problem, and it was an idea from within the team, and actually from one of the people in the marketing department, and she whispered in my ear, the way to solve this is to have mandatory salsa classes after work on a Friday. And that's what we did. And to extend that story, I'm thrilled to say that we're now on our 5th intercompany marriage. And so, as I always say to the team, you know, if we go bankrupt for some reason, like so many companies have over this adventure, then at least we will have succeeded as a dating agency. And then, of course, they're professional people, they're brilliant at what they do, and what they love doing most is schools and community projects. And we heard in the discussion from Beata, you know, about the importance of community projects. It's just wonderful to see. I mean, all our projects are enjoyable, but you know, I saw a recent community project in Britain and south of England. It was a £1 million project, and just a village had decided they wanted their own solar farm. They went ahead and did it. They raised £1 million, and we put the solar farm up for them, and it was totally seamless and just took weeks. And that's, you know, that gives you, when you see that, when you can smell the future that we've been talking about in our discussions, and then finally just thought about Solar Aid. It's at the other end of the spectrum. Here we're selling, it's a self-help charity. All the profits are endlessly recycled to the mission of getting rid of kerosene lanterns right across Africa, which of course is an entire category of fossil fuel use in an entire continent. We want to play a lead role in that. But you're selling a little solar lantern that can save a household. It's a microcosm of the energy transition. Can save a household. We know this, we measure it in 30,000 research interviews, follow-up in the field. We save a household $70 a year on average with just that replacement of oil burning. And this is what can be done now in the modern world. We know what they spend it on as well, the savings. School books, seeds, food, all the rest of it. So to see that, both the way that it plays with the people who you're helping, $70 is a ton of money when you're on $1 a day, you know? And also the way it fires up the young people who, you know, give up who invest some of their working vocational lives in going out and making this happen in the field, working with the African teams is wonderful to see. And so my very final thought is, in the new year, we have a new way of raising money to capitalize all this, and it will be selling solar lanterns of our own here in the rich countries for a slight premium. Some of the countries are going to need these, like Britain, where the lights are going to go off within a few years. And we're going to sell them at a premium. All the profits will go to Africa. And so, you know, this will begin in the new year for Solar Aid. And anyone here, you know, schools, companies, organizations, whoever, who would like to get involved in helping us with this and selling these useful lights, please just send me an email, jeremyleggett@solarcentury.com. It would be wonderful to have a group of people in Gothenburg so that I can remember this and also keep in touch, doing good work with some of you. Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you just inspired us all to do a little bit more, and that is the purpose of this award. Thank you. And now, Peter Henneke, please join me up here on stage. We also have an award motivation for you. Peter Henneke is a pioneer of the German energy transition, the Energiewende. As early as 1985, Henneke had written the book, Die Energiewende ist möglich. Sorry about my German. The energy transition is possible. Over the next 30 years, Henneke's research and participation in governmental expert groups greatly influenced the country's development. His work helped ensure that decision makers at different levels understood that both renewable energy and energy efficiency are required for an energy transition to take place. Henneke has also consistently pinpointed and spoken out on the many benefits to the society that follow from such a transition. By managing to transfer these insights to an important audience of decision makers, Peter Henneke has inspired those in power to take the important steps needed to create a sustainable energy system in Germany, which in turn has become a role model for the world, as well as Sweden. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, thank you very much, Lotta. May I hand over this tiny world for a moment to you, because being celebrated with such a prestigious prize as the Gothenburg Award reminds me that I have to make a speech for 1 hour to convince you that it's a huge occasion for me to be here and a huge honor. And I thank you all very much for this really encouraging moment. So I decided to narrow my speech a little bit down, and being not so eloquent like Jeremy, allow me to read it a little bit, but I assure you it's less than 1 hour. Especially being awarded with Beate and Jeremy is not only inspiring, but also, in my understanding, a strong signal. Since in a certain sense, we, as a trio infernale, represent the 3 pillars of an energy transition. There will be no Energiewende without a strong alliance of efficiency, renewables, and decentralized implementation. And let me add, we must not accept a trade-off between 2 mega risks. To get rid of both nuclear and fossil is not only a question of accountability for our children, but also a strong driver for sustainable solutions, and it raises competitiveness on a global scale for lead markets. Globally, energy and resource efficiency, renewable energies, and sustainable mobility are the largest lead markets of the future, with the potential growing from about 1.5 trillion euros today to more than 3.5 euros in 2025. Over the course of the last decade, Germany, as an early leader in advancing energy efficiency solutions, has slipped behind other European countries, and because of this is in danger of undermining its climate commitments and ambitious long-run Energiewende targets. And I dare to argue that Sweden also faces challenges ahead on the way to reach its efficiency goals. As has been mentioned, we wrote this book in 1985, The Energiewende is Possible. At that time, most people didn't believe in that vision. Now, it's official German policy. But a new message has to be established. The Effizienzwende, the efficiency revolution, is necessary. About 50% of global carbon dioxide emissions can and must be delivered by end-use energy efficiency and by more sustainable consumption and production. The good thing is that, in contrary to the situation in 1985, today we are not a tiny minority that is preaching this message. We feel strongly supported by a gradual change in attitudes from key bodies like the European Parliament and the International Energy Agency in Paris. Let me assure you, no market in the world is as complex as the market for energy efficiency and energy services. So we have to think about a new governance, a polycentric governance structure, to make it really happen, what is highly beneficial for our countries and for the future. We need national energy efficiency agency and give them the mandate and responsibility to reach ambitious and binding energy efficiency targets. With the removals of barriers and the right incentives of functioning markets for energy services, they will fly, and we will have the strong alliance between Jeremy and me and for the Energiewende. Driven by the momentum of the Sustainable Development Goals and of COP21 in Paris, sustainable energy and the 2-degree target are still within reach. So, thank you so much for this supporting momentum, not for me, but for the Energiewende, with this absolutely encouraging award from Gothenburg. And let me add this, gathering in Paris in the next weeks, the world leaders and all of us should send a strong, united signal against barbarism and for a sustainable future for humankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was sorry.
And now it's time for our last but not least award winner, Beate Weber-Schurholz, please. Beate Weber-Schurholz laid the foundation for Heidelberg's leading position on energy efficiency among the cities of the world. During the period of her service as mayor, Beate Weber-Schurholz demonstrated strong leadership and an ability to organize and inspire companies, local offices, officials, and citizens. She also emphasized the economic and environmental benefits of energy efficiency. Through cooperation with local business, leadership of the local authorities' energy supply company, and financing of energy-efficient buildings and heavy investments within public transport, Heidelberg reduced its CO2 emission by 30% over the period 1993 to 2007. The momentum of her leadership during this period lives on for today. Heidelberg continues to be a role model within energy efficiency. It has, for example, the world's largest stock of passive houses. Thank you. Thank you.
This is like holding the whole world in your hand. Well, it's a lot of responsibility. I would have the wish that everybody feels like that this is handed over to every and each one of you, because it's all of us who are the change. It's not others. And I think that's the most important message that I want to thank the city of Gothenburg and the jury for. That the message is that we owe, all of us hold the future in our hands, and every single one is responsible for the change. It's not others who do it. And that's why I also want to thank all those I've got wonderful ideas from, but not only great scientists and personalities I met here and at other places. It's my colleagues, the mayors all over the world, from the tiny little town in Africa and the very big ones in China, or the ones in Latin American villages. And they all have great ideas, and you profit from that. And then this all wouldn't be possible, and you mentioned that too, without the people who really do the work. Because you can throw a ball, and nobody takes care of fetching it. So if you have an administration, like as a city mayor, you need wonderful employees and colleagues in your city administration, in your public utilities, in the schools and the kindergartens, who transfer the message to the ones they are responsible for and to the work they are responsible for. And so only like that, it's this snowball effect you all want, that an idea suddenly becomes reality. And all that has been done is not yet enough and not yet sufficient, as we all know, to keep this world a wonderful place with a high quality of life for everyone. And so such an award should never be the end of a story, but the beginning of the story, and I like to understand it like that. Thank you very much to the city of Gothenburg.
Thank you.
And now, a fanfare for the winners. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd now like to ask all participants that were on stage before to come back on stage. We need to see you all up here, please. Alan too, obviously, absolutely. And now, a warm thank you to all the participants, the award winners, and also to yourselves for continuing this very important work. And thank you, Lotta, for heading the jury. Thank you. Music, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a final sentence. The work with the Gothenburg Award for Sustainable Development will continue. And I hope so will the good work, the wonderful work of these people and these people here, and also you in the audience. So let's now look at you bringing out these shining globes into the world. And until next year, take care of yourself and the planet. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.